Did you know that one of your favorite Oktoberfest meals isn't even really from Germany? At least not originally, but at this point it's as much of a German tradition as it is Austrian. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a really classic schnitzel, a pork schnitzel called Schweineschnitzel with a nice Bavarian potato salad to cut through all of the pork's richness. Let me show you how to make it. If we're looking for that perfectly thin, crisp cutlet, we need to start with our pork. With a dish as simple as schnitzel, the cut itself really makes a difference. In this case, the tenderloin creates a really tender, juicy cutlet that tastes beautifully light, even when breaded and fried in lard. When I think of the best schnitzels, I think thin is always better. This is perfect for our loin because we can cut large medallions, probably about 2 to 3 inches, depending on how girthy your tenderloin is. And then we're gonna butterfly these by making an indent into one side and then flip it over and then an indent into the other side. And now you've got a tenderloin that's flipped open, kind of like an accordion, I guess. Like you could pull it apart and push it back together. I think this gives you a little bit more surface area to actually pound thin. Now I'm gonna pound these until they're super thin. I find that if the piece is a little bit harder to get really thin, I use the pointy side first and then go ahead and use the flat side. If it's not super hard to get thin, go ahead and use the flat side. It's best to think about this like smearing the meat out further, not just pushing it down. The thinner, the better here, but try not to tear holes in the meat. The first one, I totally tear it open. I think I just cut too far in the butterflying process. If it happens, it's totally okay, don't worry about it. For a tenderloin about this size, you can get like 3 to 4 pieces easily. If you wanted a massive plate size cutlet, you could totally like use pretty much the whole tenderloin for one piece. I think that's a bit excessive for at-home cooking, but you could probably do that and get away with it. For my tenderloin, I'm left with these 3 beautiful pieces right here. We want to keep all the juice in the cutlet that we can, and we do so by seasoning the meat, not just the breading. Use salt and garlic powder on each piece here. The time that this is sitting is going to allow the salt to penetrate the meat, so don't worry about seasoning them too early. We're going to take a minute to set up the frying station because we're going to be frying each piece individually as they're breaded. Use a high-sided pan with enough lard to cover each piece and then some. We're not going to be deep frying, but we need oil to cover both sides of this. We need to at least be able to shake the pan and get oil over the sides and the top of the meat. We want our oil at around 350 Fahrenheit for frying, so keep a thermometer on hand. Now our meat's seasoned and it's time to bread these bad boys. The name of the game here is even coverage every step of the way. One container is going to have all-purpose flour with salt and pepper. One is going to be beaten eggs with a little bit of water. For something like this, 2 eggs is perfect. The last is going to be our breadcrumbs, and the finer the better here. I like to get a generic, powdery, plain breadcrumb. If you can't find that, use panko that you've ran through a food processor until much finer. Using a thicker crumb gets you something closer to a tonkatsu, which I covered here, and using a finer one creates a sandy, crisp shell synonymous with good schnitzel. Coat one piece in a thin layer of flour and then plop it into the eggs so the breadcrumbs have something to adhere to. After scouring the internet, I found that gently coating the pieces in the breadcrumb is key here. See, when I make cutlets, I usually press really hard so the crumbs stick to the meat, but with the schnitzel, you want this to be as loving and gentle as possible if you want that thin, crispy, puffy coating. These are gonna go directly into the hot lard after breaded, and if your temperature is right, you should see this bubbling immediately. Begin gently swirling the pan so that the oil spills over onto the top of the pork. To me, there's nothing quite as beautiful as cutlet cookery, the like gentle foaming of bubbling. It's not quite as aggressive as deep frying, and it just sounds like childhood to me. After about a minute, you can flip the pork and continue this process on the other side. If swirling the pan's not getting enough oil over the top of the cutlet, you can totally just baste it with the hot oil, and that's gonna help give a little bit more of that puffy, beautiful crust. Once this is browned and crisp, the inside is cooked, I can guarantee it, so don't go too long. I think for a schnitzel like this, you want a really light golden brown crisp. Hit these with salt as soon as they come out of the pan. This is not a dish that you want to wait and hang around for, so if you've got people coming over, just serve them as they come out of the pan. They cook so fast and bread so fast that they're not going to be waiting long, but you just want to make sure that these are eaten as soon as possible. They're just better that way. If you really needed to, you could throw these into a warm oven just to stay while you finish cooking them, but I think that's kind of a second option versus just cooking as you go. Now these can totally stand on their own with a slice of lemon to squeeze over as a sauce, but the perfect pairing for a schnitzel like this is the potato salad. No fried food is complete without having something tangy to make sure that you want to keep coming back for more. And this potato salad particularly is very special. This is not your classic mayo or mustardy, super heavy, dense potato salad. This is a warm, brothy potato salad. I don't know how to best explain it, so let me just show it to you. Germans have a secret flavor specific to potato salad that can only be achieved by boiling the potatoes whole and then peeling them. I think what's happening here is the skins give a little bit more potatoey flavor without letting too much water in, so the flavor and texture are spot on. Wash around 650 grams of yellow or gold potatoes, just something waxy rather than floury, and put them in a pot of salted water. The waxiness of these potatoes keeps them from falling apart when cooked. At the stove, bring this to a simmer and drop the heat down so the water is just barely moving around. You don't want it rapidly boiling, and let these cook for 20 to 25 minutes, basically until the potatoes have just cooked. I had the weirdest thing happen when I opened the lid. One of the potatoes had just completely peeled itself. I've never seen this happen before. Was wild. You can totally test these by poking them with a knife. If you can easily slide the knife in and out, they're good. Drain the water from the pot and let them cool while we make the dressing for this salad. For a legit Bavarian potato salad, we need a dressing made of vinegar, oil, onions, and like I mentioned, beef broth. Just trust me on this. In a pot, add 100 grams of beef broth, a small diced onion. For this, I just ran my knife through a tiny yellow onion to make this. 25 grams of white vinegar, salt, and pepper to season it. I think this benefits from a nice pinch of white sugar as well. Bring this up to a simmer and then you can just turn the heat off. This is enough heat to slightly soften the onions, which I think is really good in a potato salad like this. I don't love the hard crunch of a raw onion. I like it a little bit softer than that. At this point, the potatoes should be cool enough to handle so we can peel them. With potatoes like this, it's really easy to peel them with a knife. You could use your hands for sure, or a peeler, but a paring knife is just the best option here. We want these to be nice and chunky so they hold up to the dressing, so slice them into rounds that are approximately like 1/3 of an inch thick. Doesn't have to be exact, just remember that these are gonna be tossed around in a dressing, so you don't want them to fall apart. For the last bit of seasoning, we need some minced gherkins. You could just use a few dill pickles if you got them, dill and chives. To dress these potatoes, squeeze around 20 grams of olive oil over the potatoes, add in the beef broth onion mix, and give that a good stir to coat. This is gonna start a little liquidy. You're gonna notice there's probably too much and you're gonna be like, whoa, what the heck did I just do? But trust me, the oil and starch from the potatoes are gonna thicken this up over time. Add on the gherkins, dill, and chives, and then the last punch of seasoning is gonna come from a little bit of mustard. This could be hot mustard or yellow mustard. It's just something to bring some nice fragrance here. Like I said, this is the perfect pairing for our fatty, crispy schnitzel. Take a bite of schnitzel, take a bite of the potato salad, take a sip of beer. This is how you want to be doing Oktoberfest at home. Massive, massive shout out to the amazing people supporting me directly on Patreon through patreon.com/CameronMarty. They get some cool benefits for supporting the channel, and I get to keep making videos like this. So consider checking it out and consider becoming a patron. If you like this type of cooking content and you want to see more, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. Now, if you've got a bunch of tomatoes lying around and you don't know what to do with them, check out last week's video on bruschetta. Particularly this one with fish sauce and ginger is super, super delicious and really exciting. Thanks so much for watching.
Prost.